Goodbye!
The slow opening floor was another happy accident. When I first built this room, I set the floor speed to a comically slow amount, even slower than it is now. At first I thought the map bugged out because I couldn't see any movement at all. It was pretty funny, so we leaned into it and recorded some voiceover for Sterling to reflect my initial reaction.
No, don't do that. Where are you going?
This section is so fun. It's wild how many people miss Sterling's tirade here just out of sheer panic. I'm sure you've connected the dots, but this long monologue is a nod to the part where he kills you in Portal 2. Will and I were recording a lot of these last levels on the same days, and so we had a lot of chances to bounce off each other in real time. Conley's whispered asides here were fully improvised after I'd listened to Will do his full monologue. I just left the recording going and I just kept talking. Half of what I said did not make the cut. Often when you're recording stuff like this, you don't know how a joke will land, but everybody laughed at, is he ever going to shut up? So we kept it.
I don't remember exactly how the idea for Sterling to be Conley's vacuum cleaner came to be. It seemed to naturally form in a bunch of people's heads in the team at once. One inspiration for me was the episode Zima Blue of Love, Death and Robots. The game was also built while large language models like GPT-3 just came to be, which got me to think about elements like rogue AI and AI safety in the context of the story. What happens if you program a robot to clean up? How will it interpret clean up? The idea is that this vacuum cleaner was just told, clean up my mess, and was then upgraded and promoted more and more over time. Then when GLaDOS exploded and he couldn't fulfill his tasks anymore, he found new ways of achieving his goal. All that matters to him is the upkeep of Aperture, so he has to reactivate GLaDOS to do so. You don't really matter to him anymore. You've done your job well enough, but now you have turned against him, so he has to stop you. He's not a psychopathic robot who just kills you for fun, it's in self-defense. Many players remark that this twist happens too abruptly, and I see what they mean. His lines towards you throughout the chapter were intended to come across as much more sarcastic and passive-aggressive, but most players seem to interpret them as genuine. It just doesn't come across how we intended.
Stefan says he doesn't remember when we decided to make Sterling a vacuum cleaner. I remember the exact conversation. It was just such a hilariously stupid suggestion that somehow made all these pieces fall into place. It just belittles his character while simultaneously being very in line with him. I love it. Obviously, people had a lot of questions about it. Players want to know if we're implying that Aperture Science created the Roomba robot vacuum. And I think it's very clear that
Yep. No, sorry. I'll be right there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta go. I'll be right back.
When we came up with the vacuum cleaner story, we didn't immediately think to connect him to Conley as well. I was hesitant at first, since a change like this fundamentally changes the relationship between those two characters, so it has to be carefully thought out. But other team members pressed on, so we thought about how we could make it work. And it ended up being such a perfect fit. Conley is an AI researcher, so it's natural that one of her side projects involved a vacuum cleaner. We see her as an imaginative tinkerer who builds up a bunch of silly robots to keep her company, which is pretty fitting for Aperture. She's also a massive overperformer and 10x software engineer, who is probably majorly responsible for all the AI in Aperture like the turrets and GLaDOS. So adding a vacuum cleaner to that list felt natural and allows us to make this final encounter much more meaningful. Sterling has never killed anyone before and doesn't really know how to do it. If possible, he would also like to avoid a mess. His want to kill comes a bit out of nowhere, which is intended to emphasize that he's just petty and doesn't know what he's doing. Like a child who screams, "I will kill you," when somebody upsets it. He just repeats what he heard somewhere else and doesn't really think about what it actually means. We delve into his petty nature later in the finale. We didn't want players to re-enter the spire through the bridge. It felt too straightforward and repetitive. We wanted players to feel like they're breaking in under Sterling's nose, and didn't just go in the front door. We then had the idea to jump up through the incinerator shaft, which you have previously used to euthanize your faithful companion cube. This has some nice thematic elements, and adds more modes of traversal that is only possible with the portal gun.
Your demise.
Finally, Sterling and Conley meet without any interruptions.
Last words.
We already hinted at the vacuum cleaner story in the previous map, so we can skip the dialogue forward in this map and just need confirmation from Sterling. This was done to speed up the dialogue in this map, which features the most talking out of
I
any
can't
map.
believe it. Oh, they grow. It's not polite to
Conley is
murder your
mocking
mother.
Sterling quite a bit in this fight. Since she is human and an AI researcher who programmed Sterling, she knows exactly how AI like this works.
I can't believe my
She sees
Roomba
him
is
as a
trying to kill
program at
us.
worst and as a pet at best. Some players remark that she acts like a dick here.
Just give me a minute.
But how would
I'll
you
murder
react
you as
if
soon as
ChatGPT
possible.
would threaten to kill you? Would you take it seriously? Of course not. You might play along just for the giggles, but you wouldn't be afraid of your life. Here he is actually capable of killing you, so some urgency is reasonable. But Conley has been so desensitized by Aperture's shenanigans, and just has too much fun playing with her little language model. Sure, she doesn't want to kill him, but she isn't going to cry when her vacuum cleaner expresses motherly feelings for her. You can disable the timer by listening to the commentary note behind me. It will still be visible, but it will no longer kill you, so you can take your time to listen to all of the notes. The timer will no longer kill you. Have fun!
Will, Stefan, and I all live in truly the worst possible time zones for us to get together in a call. Our VO recording sessions were all over online voice chat so we could get live direction from Stefan. One-on-one sessions were doable, but for the finale, we wanted all three of us present in a call. Somebody had to take the fall and be up at 4 a.m. so we could get it done. Luckily, Stefan's sleep schedule was already broken thanks to the deadline crunch, so Will and I got to sleep our normal hours.
What did you eat?
In Portal 2, chairs are usually static, but for Portal Revolution we wanted to make them physical again, just because it's fun.
Good.
One exception
Now
was
that
the
your
map where
hands
you
are free,
first entered the
I say
Spire
we give
control
that
room.
button a little
If
push
players had
while
the
I
freedom to
explore
move
this
chairs where they
magnificent
wanted,
vent.
their positions wouldn't be consistent when they come back. So at first we made them static just for that reason. Later we got the idea of making the first control room messy and the second one here tidy, to imply that Sterling has tidied the mess and repositioned all the chairs. We leaned into it further by adding some boxes that were knocked open in the first map, which appear nicely stacked after Sterling cleaned it.
What are you doing?
This was one of the more challenging tracks I did for this game. I tried my absolute best to make it sound like a sort of mix between the first and second game's final boss tracks, with of course my own spin on it. There are two leitmotifs I reuse in this track. For the first phase, it's not a leitmotif, but I do reuse a lot of the electrical sounds from the first Spire track. And I even utilize some of the same percussion samples that were used in the first Portal game.
This is wobblier than I
Boss
thought.
fights are really hard
Find
to
a way to
design.
get to this
Portal
control
is a
room.
puzzle game where you
Maybe
can
this
play
test
at your own
chamber can
pace.
help.
Traditionally, Portal games all feature some timed boss fight at the end. Portal 1 and 2
Seems
are
about
far too
adequate
simple
considering
for our
I'm
taste.
fighting my
We wanted
own
something
vacuum
longer and
cleaner.
harder. A lot of Portal 1 mods oversteer the difficulty quite a bit, spamming dozens of rocket turrets in your face. We wanted to find a middle ground. We also wanted to use the Spire's teleportation mechanic in the fight somehow. We ended up splitting the boss fight into 3 phases to balance the length, and separated danger and puzzle into distinct areas. The puzzle area in the center builds up over time as you disconnect more and more pipes. The loop is simple: solve the puzzle to get to the next room, then clear out the turrets and press the button. Rinse and repeat. We liked the idea that players would redo the same puzzle a few times, getting faster and better every time. During the last phase, you already know the puzzle and feel like a badass as you speed to the exit.
Now, inside.
Conley's claw came together as a jokey idea that ended up solving a lot of problems. We didn't know how Conley would be involved in the fight at the time. Putting her in a hanging claw felt way too silly at first, but we prototyped it and immediately loved it. We knew our characters were too goofy for the fight to be serious and tragic, so we decided to make silly instead. With her in the claw, she can now direct players to the next goal. Her flashlight also casts really cool dramatic shadows as she swings around. The fight also feels much more personal, and like you're fighting with her. We both in this fight together. We didn't have time to establish where Sterling is in this fight, so he ended up just being a voice in the sky. But this also helps to make him feel more distant and omnipotent, which helps to further antagonize him. The colors of the
What would
control
we use
rooms
the
go
chairs
white,
for?
orange, blue, red. All important colors in Portal. The orange and blue also match the progression of Portal Revolution's chapters. The first half features many warm tones, and the second a lot of cold ones. The final room is red, which resembles danger and finality, and the Portal Revolution brand colors.
For the second phase, I used Dies Irae and the leitmotif of the Spire. I always wanted the Spire's theme to sound like some kind of weird buzzer alarm, which is why the main synth is all distorted and the melody is often echoed. I noticed a lot of people say the beginning of this phase sounds like the Portal parody of that one Nightmare Before Christmas track, Making Christmas, which is technically correct, since we all use the Dies Irae motif in our music.
Next control room is this.
Back now? Where has
Sterling's abandonment issues
What are
were
you
added to
talking
give
about?
players some sympathy towards Sterling as they were fighting him. Portal Revolution's characters aren't pure evil or good. Both of their
Do
goals are
everything
reasonable,
together.
they're just
You are a
inconstant.
vacuum cleaner.
You can see why
You
Sterling would
cleaned
want to
up
bring
for us.
Gladys back, and why
Don't even
Conley
ask
wants
me
to
why
stop
we gave him
him.
consciousness.
Conley doesn't take Sterling seriously at all, which causes a lot of
Are you
players to feel
having
sorry for him.
abandonment issues
We
right
don't
now?
want Conley to
Is
be
that
unsympathetic
seriously what's
though,
happening?
so Lord Sterling's dialogue
I
would be much
built a
meaner in
vacuum
comparison,
cleaner with
and deserving of
abandonment
retaliation.
issues.
He isn't acting rationally, but emotionally. He's just trying to do his job, but now his human companion and his long-lost mom team up to defeat him.
No turret! Kill!
He's in quite
For the third
murderous mood
phase, I
today.
reused the leitmotif from the very first chamber where you press a button and receive the portal gun. I wanted it to sound like the
Almost done.
last
One
hurrah,
more to
but
go.
also you still
The
need to
last
hurry
control room
because
is
you're
right
going to
here.
explode
Come
or
on,
whatever
you
in
can
like
do
5
this.
minutes. The same leitmotif is heard in the reveal trailer, but it feels more happy and upbeat instead of like intense and like, oh, we need to hurry.
You must have brain damage.
You're right though. It is
The whole
quite
boss
pathetic
section
that
was
a button
so
pusher
much
is
fun.
your arch nemesis.
It was one of the only times me,
No offense
Sarah,
to
and
you, test
Stefan were
subject.
just all
Just the
online
reality of
together
the situation.
recording, which is really difficult when you're in 3 different time zones, and even more difficult when one of those
She's
time
the
zones is
only
in
one of us who
Australia.
can press
But it turned out great. You can hear
I
me
don't have
and
hands
Sarah
either.
just reacting to each other in real
Wouldn't
time.
underestimate
I mean,
someone
the
with
section's got
arms.
everything you could want. It's got flying robots, killer robots, emotional backstory, confrontation, and Conley laughing at my misery. It was also one of the last things I recorded, which after a couple of years of doing this on and off was just such a great way to just bring this home. I loved working on this.
Well, this is the final button. It ends how it began. Thank you so much for playing Portal Revolution. The day this commentary goes live marks the 1-year anniversary of Portal Revolution's release, and it's been a wild ride. This is the first game I released, and the same is true for most of the team. This project has followed me throughout my entire teenage years and early adulthood. I listened to developer commentary of Valve's games and other mods so many times throughout development, and was super excited to make my own, but for some reason it took me over a year to finally ship it. The note behind me goes into this further. So after release, I fell into a pretty bad post-release depression. This game has followed me for so long, and working on it was a comfort when real life got tough. But now it's out there and no longer mine to control. I put so much of myself into this, and it was incredibly scary to release it. So what's next? That's a question everybody asks us. What's next? On one hand, my team and I were super burned out from modding after release. I already worked on this mod for 8 years, and while everyone is asking for a sequel, it seemed like a daunting task. I also had no ideas for what a sequel would look like. The ending is open for expansion, but we didn't create it with a sequel in mind. On the other hand, we're the top of our game. We have proven that we can do it and are better at modding than we have ever been. So what's next? We'll see. Thank you for playing
did
Portal
it!
Revolution, and I hope I will
Yes!
see you in our next
You did
adventure.
it. You shattered my dreams of rebuilding my home. Are you happy now? Proud of yourself?
Look, we also want the best for Aperture, but we can't do that by reactivating GLaDOS.
Portal is a puzzle game where you can play at your own pace. Traditionally, Portal games all feature some timed boss fight at the end. Portal 1 and 2 are far too simple for our taste. We wanted something
Think these chairs are gonna save you?
No, but the button might. What would we use the chair for?
I mean, I can ask you the same about the buttons. Seem a little bit obsessed with those.